The following violent haunting took place in a quiet country village on the outskirts of Manchester, England. Nick and Jay Bartlett and their two young children, Rebecca 10 and Amy 4, had temporarily moved into a large old house in June 1987 while finalising the move into their new home. They had not been in the house very long when they realised that things were not as they should be. Jay claimed that she felt some strange presence in the house which did not feel at all pleasant. Whenever she walked into the lounge, which was at the front of the house, she immediately felt a coldness and a dreadful smell of decay. From that moment on, things got only worse when one day she walked into the breakfast room and found that a painting on the wall had been turned upside down, and throughout the day could feel a presence following and watching her. On occasions, this strange presence was accompanied by a peculiar smell. Sometimes the handles of doors would turn by themselves, and occasionally there would be a knock at the door, but there was nobody there. One time Nick was having a bath, and someone started knocking at the door, and then started turning the handle in such a manner as if they were desperate to get into the bathroom, but again there was nobody there. One Sunday, Jay was at home by herself and was listening to someone playing music on the television, and then heard whistling in the hallway, and they were harmonising perfectly with the music on the TV. They were constantly hearing someone walking around with a walking stick in the hall, but could never find the source. Day by day, strange events were happening, and the couple were afraid it would affect their children. One night Jay was sitting in bed and could hear her 10-year-old daughter Rebecca talking to someone in her bedroom, and when she went to investigate, she found her daughter by herself and asked who she was talking to. Rebecca said she thought it had been her mother standing outside her bedroom door, but her mother was in bed. The unusual activity started to escalate around the house, where the lounge room would suddenly get bitterly cold, and when sitting in bed, which was directly above the lounge, they would feel an icy cold touch on their faces. In the short time they'd resided at the house, they could feel negative energy building up and feared it could become stronger and malevolent. Jay decided to move Rebecca into Amy's bedroom to keep them together, as she had an unnerving feeling whenever she went into Rebecca's room, and also because Amy was waking up in the morning crying and depressed for no obvious reason. One day Jay had taken a rug out to the backyard to give it a shakedown, and as she was returning to the house, she felt a violent push on her back between her shoulder blades, which sent her sprawling against the wall of the house. She was both shocked and confused and in terrible pain and was unable to move. With her children at school and Nick at work, she was forced to crawl back inside the house and call an ambulance. Doctors found that she had broken her arm and foot and told her that her injuries had not been caused by a simple fall, but it looks as if someone had violently pushed her. Fortunately, the following month would be quiet, except for the cold spots and strange odours which still could not be explained. Then on November the 3rd, their peace would be shattered when Jay was sitting in an armchair while a broken foot rested on a piano stool, and Amy was seated next to her on the arm of the chair. All of a sudden, Amy was picked up and thrown from the chair and landed a short distance away against the door, unhurt. It appears that the activity was starting to get even more threatening and violent. 4 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, Jay again had her foot resting on the piano stool when suddenly the stool was forcefully whisked from under her, where her foot painfully crashed to the floor. Later that day, Jay lit a cigarette only to have it burst into flames. The hallway was regularly filled with the sound of a walking stick tapping on the floorboards. A cold blast kept blowing into the lounge room, where the door would open by itself. The ornaments were now being moved around the room, and in the evening, as they were sitting in front of a warm fire, parts of the room filled with a numbing chill. At one time, Amy was walking down the stairs, and as she reached the bottom step, she was lifted by invisible hands and thrown down the remaining steps. Jay and Nick were concerned whether Amy could be seriously injured, or whether the evil force would find another family member to attack. In desperation, the couple employed the help of a team of psychic investigators, and on their first visit on a cold Sunday afternoon in November, one of the investigators, called Diane, saw a young boy at the upstairs window as they were approaching the house. Diane was unaware that the family did not have a son, and had no idea she was staring at a ghost, as the two daughters had been sent away during the investigation. When Diane was shown some very old photographs that had been left in an old drawer, she identified the boy in the upstairs window. The room the boy had been seen was Amy's bedroom. From the old photograph, they were able to gain some historical insight surrounding the boy and the house. They found that the malevolent force in the house was probably the ghost of the governess, who they found had been strict and violent. She lived in the house with 2 other ladies and 2 young boys. The governess would frequently beat the young boys and would regularly hit them with a walking stick which she needed for her injured left leg. She would regularly be heard clumping around the house, and the boys would fear her coming. The younger of the boys was terrified of her and cried constantly. The room Amy slept in had been the younger boy's room, which was filled with fear and sadness, which is why Amy would regularly wake up crying and depressed. When Jay was walking around the house with a walking stick that supported her injured left leg, just like the governess, she feared the governess was trying to mould her into her own image, as she was also becoming angrier and angrier, and feared she would slowly transition into the vicious woman and become a bully. The psychic investigators were later able to exorcise the wicked governess in order to protect the family and hopefully release the poor boy from the woman's influence. The family had only a few weeks left of the house, but nevertheless moved Amy out of her bedroom, fearing that the walls had absorbed so much emotional horror that it had left a permanent residual scar in the room. It is hoped that whoever moved into the house next would not have to relive what Carrie, Nick and their daughters had gone through.